Welcome everyone to the first in a series of Portland Rising shows. I am Karen Wood, your host and co-owner and publisher of the independent Portland Phoenix. We are excited and very proud to present a more visual and interactive look at what we as a group have been publishing in our weekly newspaper and the people that incite interest in the greater Portland area, along with putting faces to the names of our talented writing staff. New episodes of Portland Rising will be available every month in conjunction with Portland Media Center, and we thank them for their able assistance. Each episode will be available on our website, portlandphoenix.me, and also on Portland Media Center's YouTube page. And now I would like to pass it off to my co-partner here and editor of the Portland Phoenix, Marian McHugh.
Thank you, Karen. As you said, we're very excited to share this first episode of Portland Rising with you. I'd like to share a little history of the Phoenix as an alternative newspaper. It was founded in Boston in 1968 in the tumult of the anti-war and youth movements, and initially had many versions, expanding to other cities and finally to Portland. That old Phoenix was known for its arts coverage as well as investigative reports. In that same year of social ferment, the Maine Times was founded, which was very well known for its environmental coverage. We have tried to continue at the New Phoenix the traditions of both those papers. When the old Portland Phoenix folded in the beginning of 2019, several newspaper folks, including Karen and me and Mo Melsack, a veteran newspaper editor, came together to decide to relaunch the Phoenix in a new version, which would feature in-depth news stories and local news in the greater Portland area, and also the arts coverage that was really a hallmark, especially of the old Phoenix. In the last 14 months, we've been presenting in-depth stories and carrying on the traditions of those papers. Recently, these stories included an investigative report into the crisis of justice delayed in Maine's judicial system due to COVID, written by Doug Rooks, who was a former Maine Times editor. We've also reported on the lack of juvenile justice we've reported many times on the juvenile justice system, and especially most recently this past week on the lack of detox facilities for juveniles. And most recently in this issue, we've reported on a very concerning trend at the Barron Center, which has seen 12 deaths from COVID just in the month of January, as well as a report on the Portland Museum of Art and the criticism of the National Union, which has really criticized the arts, the leaders, the officials at PMA for the way they're handling the union drive there. We've continued the strong arts coverage with Maine's premier fine arts writer, Edgar Allan Beam, and Sam Feifel, who covers the local music scene. Sam will be presenting his Songs of the Year at the end of this program. We're also paying attention to ways people are coping with the pandemic, including stories on love in the age of COVID, outdoor winter enjoyments, and extensive coverage of the food scene in Portland, which has been renowned but has taken a big hit in COVID and is searching for ways to recover. We're paying attention to that. We're happy to have this program to introduce you to the Phoenix. We want to find new ways to connect with readers, and we need your feedback in order to succeed, and we want your story ideas. One of the stories we covered recently was an interview with Rose Barboza, the founder of Black-Owned Maine. As we start our observance of Black History Month, we are going to present an interview with Rose Barboza and Jerry Edwards, who run Black-Owned Maine. I'll turn it over to our reporter, Elizabeth Clemente, who wrote this cover story on that enterprise late last year for that interview.
Thank you, Marian. I'm excited to introduce our guests today, Rose Barboza and Jerry Edwards, who are the co-directors of Black-Owned Maine. Black-Owned Maine was started by Rose last summer as a directory of Black-owned businesses here in Maine and has since expanded to have over 15,000 Instagram followers, its own podcast, and also gives grants to families that are struggling during the pandemic and has many plans to expand even further. I wrote a story about Rose back in November for the Portland Phoenix, and I'm excited to connect with her again today virtually and to meet Jerry. So Rose, if you want to start us off by talking about what inspired you to start Black-owned Maine and how those first few months were for you.
So we were inspired to start Black-owned Maine in June, actually. Well, May 29th, after George Floyd was murdered and the whole world literally was protesting and kind of an uprising. I came to Jerry and we wanted to give people a way, excuse me, we wanted to give people a way to protest with their dollars, people who weren't able to physically go to a protest, people who maybe weren't interested, people who couldn't, obviously because COVID, right, is still a thing and was definitely a thing then. We just really wanted to provide, and we also wanted to provide revenue to the businesses in our directory who were hit by COVID, who were just not able to obtain traditional marketing and who weren't in, the normal publications that you see. So really just a resource for people.
Absolutely. Great. And I know before our article, you had some publicity to your organization. And I'm wondering, did that help you expand at all? Or how did that sort of affect things once the ball started getting rolling? Were you surprised to see how it sort of blossomed from there, Rose?
Yeah, it was crazy, honestly. We never, when we started, we didn't really know what to expect, right? I was just like, okay, Jerry, let's just put together this list, this directory. It seems like this is something that people are searching for on Instagram and on Facebook and online. I kept seeing blurbs pop up. And I mean, after our first week, we had 6,000 followers on Instagram. Our email was blowing up. It was crazy. It's still crazy. Honestly, we still are receiving a lot, not as much press as back then. But I mean, we've probably had 10 plus interviews, which have all been great. And they've allowed us to tell different parts of our organization and show people that it's evolved, for more than just a directory.
Absolutely. And Jerry, I know you have a background in audio production and that you are also the host of the Black-owned Maine podcast. I took a look and you've produced 3 episodes so far talking about topics like youth incarceration, racial justice, youth leadership. And so why do you think it's important for Black-owned Maine to have a podcast and to explore these issues, especially in Maine?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that in the state of Maine, there's a bit of I say a stigma, a stereotype that there aren't many people of color. Therefore, there aren't many issues, the issues that people historically consider surrounding people of color. Of course, the challenge is always, issues of race and racial injustice doesn't stem from people of color. It's more of other people in society who look at people a certain way. So for me, I find that taking these lenses into the nuances of Black folks and brown folks and Native folks' lives, and just understanding nuances that they're artists and creators and mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers, but like really learning some of their history, learning how they grew up in the church or they didn't or whatever. I think that bringing those stories to bear is a lot of great perspective for folks. And again, y'all hear me on the podcast. I go by Genius Black. My name is also Jerry. I have a couple names, but yeah, I'm one of the audio guys, and I love to get in there and talk and dig in with people so that we can expose some of these stories and these truths for people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I know Black-owned Maine has 2 sides to it. It has a for-profit and a nonprofit. So Rose, let's start by talking about the nonprofit. Creative Portland is your fiscal sponsor. So let's talk about what does that mean? And also what other businesses have you worked with locally? I know you had a Black Business Pledge back at Christmas time. Let's dive into that side of things.
So we have, we have Black-owned Maine, which is what most people see, or what's kind of what everyone sees online. That's the nonprofit. Our fiscal sponsor is Creative Portland. And what that means is that we ourselves don't have tax exempt status with the federal government, or Creative Portland does. So we're able to team up with them, meaning that when anyone donates to our organization, they can have that as a write-off. That means we're able to apply for grants easier. We're able to get funding, which everyone knows nonprofit is you're constantly trying to get funding. And our for-profit side is Black-owned Maine Media. So that is where we produce content. Essentially, we can produce your podcasts. Jerry's great at producing commercials. Really, Jerry's great at all audio stuff. So we really have that to our benefit. But we also can produce your videos and anything like that. And as far as other businesses we've worked with, a lot. We've worked with Allagash. They did a Black is Beautiful beer release. And we've also just been partnering. We're partnering right now with GP Cog and Portland Buy Local for the pledge itself. So that pledge is actually going to be something that we're extending out kind of indefinitely, essentially asking people to make a long-term commitment to support these businesses and organizations more than just, when it's cool or when it's the in thing to do. We want this to be something that is full circle.
That was a nice segue into my next question for you, Jerry. Rose sort of touched upon it. I think, racial justice has been a big topic this year, but you want to make sure it's a lasting movement, not just a moment, as they say. So especially here in Maine, where it's such a white state, over 90% white, Jerry, what do you think white people can do to be good allies to people of color?
Listen, I think the number one thing that, let's just say in the state of Maine, that white people that happen, whether you're from Maine or whatever, but people in Maine can do is listen to people of color. I think that we are in a place in history where for so long, the voices of people of color, their perspectives, their actual thoughts and feelings have been devalued systemically, individually, on many levels. And I think that part of what happened after the murder of George Floyd, and I mean, everyone knows this, is this kind of awakening. For people of color, it was rather sad, not just because the brother died and was murdered in the street, but because all of a sudden you had all these people who last week they promised they were great people and great allies to you, all of a sudden like removing the glasses and now they can see. So yeah, aside from that weird feeling of it, I do think it's critical now that we continue that trend of listening to people of color, engaging them. Stop telling them what to do. Stop telling them the way it should be. Stop telling them there's nothing wrong. Listen to people of color.
Absolutely, I agree. As a person of color in Maine myself, I definitely identify with that. And Rose, is there anything that you would want to say to add to that?
I think Jerry really hit it on the nail, hit it on the head. I don't know, whatever. One of those things. I think that's really the most important part is to listen. And if you are called, and I say it this way because there are some people who are all they have the ability to do is listen. But if you're someone who can take that further, physically, mentally, do it. Like, take the dive, read some books, take action. You can contact us, or there's plenty of other organizations in our directory who would also appreciate your support. But do that because you want to. Don't do it because someone told you. Do that because you're called, to take that next step.
Can I add something to that?
Definitely.
One thing that's really critical, because we are in this really an amazing time of awakening. I really believe in kind of reforming or reapproaching some of these issues. Another nuance of that is I'm saying, listen to people of color. Rose is saying, take action, read books, actually dig in, reach out to people. But I'm just going to say this. If you reach out to people of color and they don't have the energy, they're not ready to put in that emotional labor and become vulnerable with you and tell you their life story and how things have hurt them, leave them be. Look for your answers somewhere else. As much as I'm telling you to listen to Black folks, I'm also saying get away from the habit of expecting people of color to work for you for free. And that does include emotional labor. That is not yours for free.
Absolutely. I agree. I think that's a super important point. So sort of piggybacking off of that, if people hear this interview and they're interested in Black-owned Maine and maybe they don't own a business, or, how can they get involved? How can they volunteer? How can they help this organization specifically? Rose, you want to take that?
Sure. So yeah, there's a few different ways. I would say the one thing you can do, and the one thing you can do that doesn't take a lot of effort, is to support us online, to support us on social media, to to share our posts. Also, when you're driving, you can listen to our podcast. When you're stationary, you can go to our website and you can actually support the businesses. And even if you don't have a lot of money, right? Even if that's not the thing in your life that you have in abundance of, there's still the ability to, even, like I said, there's more than just businesses on there. There's nonprofits, there's groups, there's organizations. Make
Yes.
a $5 donation. Anything. If you hear our podcast and our podcast speaks to you, make a $5 donation. Just because, like Jerry said, these are things that people are doing and we're doing and other organizations are doing. And there isn't, it's not a service necessarily that the nonprofit is selling, to an extent. So it's important that if you believe in the mission, if you believe in this movement, that we support these organizations in as many different ways as possible, and some of which are the ones that I mentioned previous.
Absolutely. And I know Jerry touched on this earlier, but as far as the for-profit side of Black Owned Maine goes, what is your vision, Jerry? I'll ask you that. How would you like to see Black Owned Maine expand into the future with helping entrepreneurs, helping people produce their podcasts, things of that nature?
Yeah, well, on the for-profit side of Black Owned Maine Media, it is somewhat of a continuation of, okay, think about some of the visuals, some of the audio you've heard from us. I've been somewhat responsible for the audio branding so far. So the sound quality of the podcast, the quality of some of the conversation and interviews, think about that, but more so apply to some of what your own business does, for instance. A lot of times what we can help people with, aside from things like podcasts, is say you are a business or you're someone who's looking to develop some video training around some of the issues that we talk about. You can hire us to help you create that and to deliver that. Also to do radio ads and commercials. We've had a couple things that we've been blessed to get on the radio. And for us, we know that sound is just it's one of the senses. We really have, from the beginning of our when we came alive, I guess in the summer, we really focused partially on the audio and different types of audio. Again, how some of my skills, play into that. So if you need things that are in terms of marketing, advertising, video, audio, podcasting, commercials, those are the type of things that we can handle. We have a couple people we can hire in to help with things if we can't handle it. But yep, we have a lot of skills along those lines.
Awesome. Well, sounds great. Thank you both so much for chatting with us today. If anyone watching is curious about Black Owned Maine, go follow them on Instagram at Black Owned Maine. And now I'm going to send it over to our music columnist, Sam Feifel, for his review of the best music of 2020.
Hey, everybody. And thanks so much, Elizabeth. Really appreciate having seen that. Great to hear about Black Owned Maine. It's also a tough act to follow with Jerry's mellifluous tones there and beautiful mic control. But I will do my very best to live up to that high standard that they have set. Also, just want to thank Marion for referencing the history of the Phoenix. I was the first employee of the Portland Phoenix back in 1999 as the listings editor, and I was hired by my mentor, Cliff Garbodin, who was the founder of the original Phoenix in Boston, and then it was called The Real Paper back in 1968. And Cliff died of cancer a few years back, but there's so many of us that were trained by him and live on with his vision for alternative media. And it's so exciting to have the Phoenix continuing it. And so, as Marion said, and as Elizabeth said, I'm the music writer. Hopefully you've read some of my columns over the years. I've been doing it for almost 20 years now, and I never get tired listening to local music. And local music even is kind of a misnomer. I just like listening to music, and we've got plenty to sort through here in Maine, so why go any further, right? And in order to introduce you to some of the best stuff that's been made recently, I thought I would go through my 10 best songs of 2020 now that we're here in 2021. And hopefully you find something in these list of 10 songs that resonates with you. Everybody has different taste, and a lot of you, I know you just listened to the music that was popular when you were a senior in high school and you got kissed to, or you went to a dance to, and that's why you're still listening to Led Zeppelin or Cheap Trick or Duran Duran or whoever it is. But I'd encourage you to get out of your comfort zone and find some of these bands on YouTube or Spotify or Bandcamp. And Bandcamp is actually the best one if you want to buy music, because they give the most money to the artists, and that's always a good thing. So I'm going to fire into it. what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about the song, and then we are going to play a little bit of it, and then we are going to go on to the next song. And so I will get us started here with what I would consider number 10 on my list of top 10, although the rankings aren't all that important. And this first one is by a band called The Worst. And what I love about this song is just the raw emotion that's in lead singer Brooke Binion's voice. It reminds me so much of when I first came into grunge in the mid 90s with, people like Lane Staley and Kurt Cobain, and, just that, raw response to what was happening in the 80s and how disaffected they felt. And I hope we get some more of this kind of raw emotion coming out of this COVID era going forward. So here is The Worst, Yes Regrets.
Got no guts, no marks for cuts. It's been yes regrets and psychic messes, torn up dresses, no contrition. Just a couple of mental conditions in a failed to. Who did a fail to say I'm sorry?
All right, I hope you enjoyed that. Next up, I've got a band called Coyote Island, which is really just one guy. His name is Mike O'Hahere. He used to have a band called Old Soul, which is kind of what it sounded like. It was a rootsy Americana thing, super sedate, really easy listening for a Sunday morning. And then he went and did some traveling, and he came back with Coyote Island and this song called Here Before, which I'm going to just play you the open of it here. And I hope it resonates with you the way it does with me. It just takes me to a different place where the sun is shining and I'm on the beach and I can't see any of the snow out of my window. I just think it's got this amazing tone and production value. And the whole of his 4 or 5 songs he's released this year have all been terrific. So here is Here Before by Coyote Island.
Keeping track of the days I sing, losing count of the ways I bring my love to you. There was a night where we met in June, Lucy on my mind but my eye on you in the firelight. Looking my way with your eyes so blue, I had the feeling of a love so true, ain't hard to see. I've been here before, and so have you.
Okay, next up, we got some guys named the Oshima Brothers. I don't know where they came from. They are somewhere in Maine. I stumbled across them and was just blown away by everything that they're doing. They are brothers. They have that blood harmony going, so they just sound amazing together. And they also have just kind of, created this soft vibe that also still has a ton of energy that I really appreciate. It gets me up. Great song to listen to in the morning. And I'm going to play this little clip here where, it's a device that a lot of singers use, but I love how they go into that falsetto on the "when you grab my hand," which I'm not going to sing as well as now, but that means if you can't sing along to that in the car, you got to get your emotions in check because it's awesome. This is Colorblind by the Oshima Brothers.
In black and white, there ain't no color around. Then you grab my hand and pull me fast forward in time. You made my sky expand when I was seeing colorblind.
One of the best things that happened in 2020 because of COVID. I know there probably are some other ones, but I love the fact that Lady Lamb is back in Maine. She had traveled down to Brooklyn for a home base. And I think she is just one of the most dynamic singer-songwriters, producers, musicians who's ever come out of Maine. It's super fun to see it come out of that tiny little package. She really packs a punch. Her voice is spectacular. She did a series of events up at her house up on the Maine coast this summer. If she does that again, I would highly encourage you to find a way to get there. And what I just love about what she does is she just creates these beautiful portraits, her lyrics, but also the way that she just has these amazing dynamics going from soft to loud. So here's a piece of the song that I love from 2020 by her. This is Arizona by Lady Lamb.
Still time is kindly turning over. I feel her dry in my eyes. Time is kindly turning over. I feel her dry in my eyes while I wander the path backwards in the clean morning light, trying to take my time.
All right, but I know you guys want some energy here in 2021, and I like to thrash around a little bit, especially at night when I need to get some energy out because I've been sitting in front of this computer all day long. And there's a band called Lemon Pitch that I love. They are doing just a great job putting out really high energy rock. They are on the Repeating Cloud label, which is doing amazing things to kind of bring raw indie rock back into Portland. I'm really excited about. And this song, they have 3 different lead singers. This one's fronted by Brock Ginther. And it's just a super fun song called The Kind of Band That Wears Hats. And I want the kind of band that wears hats because this band is great.
The kind of band that wears hats. And where we're targeting ads. To be the biggest fish on the dish, you guys fussy splash. The kind of band that tells jokes. The kind of view of their own. They're the first to point to the bunch to see you after the show. All of us are waiting on the food truck without frowns.
One of the newest voices here in 2020 has been a guy named Ben's Ben Dead. Came out of the hip hop scene, but now he's just the in-demand guy that everybody wants to work with. He does really cool things with production. He's got all kinds of really interesting vocal techniques that he uses. You might see him collaborating with the likes of Dave Gutter or Shane Rice or all sorts of people through the hip hop scene. And I love this song. I'm a super sucker for nostalgia. If you give me a song about the past and lost love, I am going to probably fall in love with that because what's better than that sweet nostalgia. And this one is kind of about the regret of loss. You can guess what the 3 words might have been in this song called 3 Words by Ben's Ben Dead.
Call to apologize like it's my fault. I guess it's time you come back home and rip my heart out. Cause it all feels the same when nothing makes you feel at all. I'm choking on my own resolve. I hope we end up better off. I ripped the pictures off the wall 2 minutes after you left. I took 2 words from my bowl, 3 words I came to regret. No, you're not coming back today. Promise I get that on my bed. When it was all said and done, I wish some things were the same.
Maybe the best album of the year, this is not ranking albums, this is just kind of ranking songs, but maybe the best album of the year was by Dominic Lavoie. Hopefully you've heard of him. He's been around the Portland area for a long time. He's an in-demand producer himself at his Shabby Load Studios. But his album called Wave of the Broken Arm is just really old school album creation, tour de force. Just love the narrative structure of it. Love the variety of sounds he creates. I love how cohesive it is. And this is my favorite song off it. It's called Jet Set Johnny. And I'm going to play you this clip here where he moves from the verse and sort of a pre-chorus into the chorus. And I just love this like 80s discotheque vibe that he creates that sort of instantly changes your mood as you're listening. It's just an amazing ode to a friend that we lost a couple years back here in the music scene. And this is Jet Set Johnny by Dominic Lavoie.
On your way to Frisco Lake, got your sights on something further. Up the road a little way. Just said your name. Just said your name. Just said your name.
If there's one thing that I was ready for in 2020, it was a little bit of heavy rock and roll. Maybe, you know, everybody has their different coping mechanisms, but just like I sometimes need to get up and energetic, sometimes I need to get a little bit angry. It's been a long time since I listened to sort of angry music on the regular, but lately I've been putting this on. It's not really so much angry as just loud. I love this song for driving around with the volume up as high as I can possibly put it. Don't tell my wife, she's an audiologist and wants to protect my hearing. But if you can't play music loud in the car by yourself, I don't know where you can do it. And I just love Neil Collins' vocals on this. I think this chorus is just transcendent. So I'm just going to play you a bit of the chorus here from a song called Sherman's March by Murcielago.
I'm trying to say good morning, to say good morning, to say goodbye. I'm trying to say good morning, to say good morning, to say
One of the biggest sort of stars that Maine has ever produced, and I'm not sure we really know about it, is a woman named Amy Allen. I am sitting right here in the crossroads of Maine in Gray, Maine, and just over the border over there in Windham is where Amy Allen grew up. You might have seen her playing some bluegrass. She used to hang out with Jerks of Grass all the time. She's still, I don't know, mid-20s, 25, 26. And she is actually one of the most in-demand songwriters in Hollywood right now, living out in California, just cranking out hits for big-time pop stars. And finally, she has started releasing her own music. She's put out 4 or 5 singles over the course of 2020, coming in here into 2021. And they just show off a songwriter who is just at the height of her powers. I can't imagine. She's obviously going to get better just based on sort of her age and getting more experience. But she can craft songs in so many different styles and approaches. And now she's also developed this vocal delivery that is just so perfectly sultry and accessible. And she just sounds like she's whispering right in your ear, right next to you. This song, I'm going to play you a clip from what I guess is the chorus. She does some interesting things kind of using dynamics, but just listen to this bass line. The bass line that she creates for this hook is the type of hook that you can just put into almost any song. And again, this is Difficult by Amy Allen.
I wish that I could love you. I'm difficult, don't think that I can trust you. I'm cynical, but I kinda want you to stay and change my mind. You're telling me to dive right in.
Finally, this is my song of the year. I'm not, big on stars or rankings or anything like that, but this song I just think is absolutely dynamic. I think it is some of the best work we've ever seen in Portland. And I know that Ghost of Paul Revere worked hard on this song. They were in the studio with Jonathan Wyman for a long time with producer Spencer Albee. They're tweaking the knobs and moving things around. It is a textured and layered song, but ultimately it's a song about, betrayal, losing someone that you loved just too much. And while the song is dynamic and bombastic at times, I'm going to play you this final clip that kind of rolls the song out. And you can just hear the vulnerability in Griffin Sherry's voice when he sings this. He just really does an amazing job of delivering the final kind of emotional appeal of this song. So this is a song called Love at Your Convenience by Ghost of Paul Revere.
I love you, but I ain't coming back. I said I told you I love you, but I ain't coming back. I said I'm sorry, I love you, but I ain't coming back no more.
All right, so those are the 10 songs. I hope you've heard something in those clips that you can really latch onto and wrap your arms around. I really appreciate you listening up. And when I look forward to what's going to happen in 2021, it's going to be hard. You're not going to see a ton of big band records come out in the next 6 to 9 months. Bands have not been able to rehearse much because of COVID. Bands have not been able to get close and tight into studios, which are not really, sort of windows open sort of places. So you're going to get a lot of, solo work. You're going to get a lot of hip hop work that's produced and people can do it kind of emailed fashion. You will get a lot of, rock records that are made in lots of different places. So, be kind of patient with those records that are coming out, and also be patient with going to live shows. I don't think we're going to be at live shows relatively soon. Hopefully this summer we get some stuff. But just remember, I'm wearing my P Home t-shirt right here. Shop at local venues, buy their merch. Put some money into their pockets, help them get through the other side of this, because I can't think of anything, well, I think a lot of worse things, but I can't think of much worse than not having a place to go see music when this is all said and done with. I can't wait to get that vaccine in my arm so I can feel confident in going out to shows again, getting uptight and sweaty with y'all. So thanks so much. Thanks for watching this Phoenix Rising. I'm going to throw it back to Karen to wrap this up.
Thank you, Sam. That was awesome. I think I just came up with the title of our first episode would be listen to the people from Jerry and Rose, and listen to Sam. I mean, and all the music he's projecting into the future of this year and everything else. But it's a great show, you guys. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Sam. Especially thank you, Rose and Jerry, for being part of our show. And we look forward to seeing you all again next month with a brand new show. Hope it is as inspiring as it was today. And please give us your feedback. We would love to hear from you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the old-fashioned way. Email us at editor@portlandphoenix.me, or really old-fashioned, give us a call, 207-536-5210. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And we really want to hear what you think, because these are inspiring groups that are here in Portland. And we'd love to know what you're looking at and what you're interested in hearing. So thank you, guys, and we'll see you next month.
Looking my way with your eyes so blue. I had the feeling of a love so true. Ain't hard to see.